So today, because I feel like we need to advance the topic further than than machine learning or deep learning. I was given, or at least I'm interested by the organizer to talk about generative AI and how the generative AI going to impact the way we deliver healthcare service and product. So, how does these two differ, right? So, previously, the kind of AI that you guys are more used to is something that you don't particularly see. You didn't experience it firsthand. You don't even know like the AI is working. So one of those examples are like, do you know when you scroll through Facebook? Okay, I mean for boomers here, like it's Facebook. Like for people who are not, then it's probably TikTok. When you like a post, or when you pause long enough in a post, it will then start recommend you. It will start recommend you like related feeds, and that's basically how AI used to work back then. It identify pattern, and then it sort of know what you like now and what you might like later. If you apply this into healthcare, what does it mean? It means, for example, if you try to purchase a health service, or if you talk with an app about the kind of condition and symptoms and syndromes that you have, it will start recognizing your pattern, and it will recommend you, okay, go for ultrasound. It will recommend you, go for colonoscopy. It will start to recommend you do this and do that. It will give you like a short list of recommendations. And that's basically what we did. I think those who are probably like from the Selangor government and its agency would know that those are the kind of AI that we applied in Sri Lanka. So those who are familiar with Sri Lanka is basically, like the health tech app for the Selangor state government. And this is basically the platform where we distribute health service, product, and also welfare offerings through the platform. So that was how AI used back then. But nowadays, starting from a couple of years ago, we got exposed to generative AI. And how does generative AI differ, right? How does generative AI differ? Is that first thing first, it now no longer only recognizes a pattern. It works smack on your face. It generates content. When you speak with ChatGPT, it will produce this content. It will show it in front of you, And you suddenly realize, like, okay, now I directly interact with this artificial intelligence. Like last time you didn't know. Last time, you like this post, and then suddenly like the feed sum up, and you don't even know it was an AI that pushed it into you. Or at least you might know, but not all your users know, right? But nowadays, people are more cognizant, people understand, and people realize in real time, the one that they are speaking with, or the one that they are interacting with, is basically an artificial intelligence. So that's number one. Because it's a content creation, it will generative AI, it will create new text, it will create new images, it will create new content, and it can extract other outputs by learning from existing data. It going beyond analytical AI. So the AI that we used back then, some people call it analytical AI, or some people call it predictive AI. So unlike traditional analytical AI, the generative AI has the ability to generate novel data and insights, right? So it doesn't only recognize your symptom, but it will start recommending you something else. Like, it understands your syndrome, and then it recommend you, this is basically what you might want to check out. It generates new output, right? And in comparison to predictive AI, it will focus on creation, while predictive AI specializes in pattern recognition and testing. Little bit technical, and little bit, it's not so technical, but it's for nerds like me. So for nerds like me, like we focus on how the large language model have evolved so fast. It have evolved so fast, but for people who are familiar with large language model, and large language model is the type of AI that you use in ChatGPT, the one that you chat with. So this is only one example of it, right? And you see, like, it started in 2013, and in just a decade, it has become so sophisticated that nowadays you have new opportunities, but likewise new risks that we need to consider. Uh, like I said, if you were to compare this and to get like a little bit high-level knowledge, analytical AI or predictive AI, it will focus on pattern recognition, disease prediction, and diagnostic, right? So for example, it's like how IBM Watson used AI in oncology, how Zebra Medical Vision use it for image analytics, and how we ourselves in Hayat, we use it to profile people on their NCD risk. So we didn't generate anything new. We are not saying that, we are not saying they are going to get this. We are saying, based on the data, we think they already have this, except that you don't know, and therefore go for health screening, right? So that's how it differs. And generative AI, it will generate, in healthcare, it will generate like new treatment suggestion, It has also been used in drug discovery and also personalized health plan. So for examples, if QMATs are here, if you're not, like go check them out, like, they're good. I'm not from QMAT. So QMAT is Asia Nauratul, for example, for symptom triaging. They are good at training their model with the Malaysian clinical practice guideline so that the recommendation that it gives is very, very localized, right? And it's relevant to the Malaysian market. And it is also how we in Hayat use it for policy AI in care economy. So I give you an example. So this is basically how we did it, our analytical AI or predictive AI in Sri Lanka. So what you see over this side, this is basically all the dummy patient. So there's a dummy patient, it's not a real person. And basically those are the, sorry, I'll go here. Oh, how do I? Oh, sorry. Like, can you get back to the video part? What did I click? This one need to be powered by AI, so it already know what I want to do. Okay. So anyhow, again, so can you play back this video? I don't know what I should click. So you see, it identify, and these are basically the data set, the learning data set. And what it tried to do is it tried to analyze this candidate which have not yet been diagnosed, and what are the similarity that they have with people who have been diagnosed. And it will give you like some scoring, like, oh, these people, they have not been diagnosed with anything, but if you run this modeling on them, very likely, 80% of a chance, they're going to have a biomarker abnormality, whether their cholesterol going to be elevated, whether they will have some abnormality in their urine test, or whether their IFOBT or like the screening test for colon cancer will be positive. And more importantly, what do we use that for? So the Selangor government, what it uses it for is because we try, when we run a health screening program, so the idea is like, if you are going to deploy 1,000 tests, because this is not a prevalence study, so if you run 1,000 tests, what you want to do is like, you want to get a very good positive yield. If you run 1,000 tests, you wish to discover the most optimum number of patients that will be turned out to be positive. So you are screening the right people. You are not going to use the test kit to screen normal people. And you can use that through, this idea have always been there, is ancient, but how we in medical world do it is like, we have some clinical recommendation, we have some risk factor, we have some, clinical risk factor that we ask people like to screen themselves for, but using machine learning, using machine learning in analytical AI, we can do that prospectively. You can run people data on the basis of what they are buying, where they live, what kind of occupation they got involved in, and then even without asking them about their biobehavior risk. You don't even have to ask people like, what do you eat every day? But we have a strong correlation to find that if people stay in some area with a lot of access to 24-hour eateries, then very likely this individual, you will discover something abnormal in their, in their blood test. So enough about analytical AI. This is basically how we use generative AI in Selangor, because this is a Selangor conference, right? So you kenalah bagi kudos to the organizer. So over in Selangor, like the care economy sector, for example, like the one care economy sector, we have this problem in government agencies, especially. I was asked by many organizations or by many players. They were so excited about data analytics. Dr. Helmi, we got like millions of data, can you put it in a beautiful dashboard, So we put it in beautiful dashboard. Can you help me replay this video again? So you put it in a beautiful dashboard, there's a lot of data, it moves here, it moves there, it looks brilliant, and it looks nice for data storytelling, except if you know how to, tell the story of the data. And then before I realize it, if I deploy 7 dashboards, it also means I have to tell stories to 7 clients, sometimes at the same day. Because like when people can be overwhelmed with this data, and people be overwhelmed with the data, they don't know what they're looking for, and they don't even understand like, what does this number try to tell me? It means, and basically there's a shortcut to it, right? There's a shortcut to it, and the shortcut to it is basically by using generative AI. So over in some agency, what they use it for, especially at the grassroots, they don't necessarily have the luxury of data analytics, in the grassroots, in the Dun level or in the district level. So you give them a dashboard that shows them, the number of care service, the number of at-risk population within their localities. And then they need to make some summaries of it, right? Like, what do I make out of all of this data? What does the distribution say? So you run an AI summary to tell, okay, for your population in Dun Lembah Jaya, for example, you have an imbalance or a misrepresentation number, or a unbalanced number between the demand of elderly care services versus facilities. And this is more and more accentuated or more and more intense, for example, in the less urbanized area. And what do you mean by less urbanized area? They will flag it up for you. This is important for planning. And it's so important for people to plan prospectively, especially when you progress so fast, rapidly into an aging society, and it might be too late for us to start and calculate the number and start realizing the dimension of the problem if we don't have enough insight and enough intakes. Right. Now, AI sounds exciting, but it doesn't come without its risks. So since 2019, I was involved in a number of, I have to hold it here. I'm sorry. I was involved in a number of committee, in my personal capacity and also in my capacity as, as representative of, one of the company that I work as. And all these global committees that you're looking at, that I got involved in, all were discussing or still are discussing about the promise and the risk of AI adoption, right? So for example, the WHO and ITI Working Group for AI in Health, it is basically a collaborative effort to develop guidelines and best practice on how to deploy AI responsibly in healthcare system, right? And despite 5 years of work, we started this group back in 2018, and despite 5 years of work and despite of 40 documents that we are going to publish, up until now, the only 2 that have been able to be published because it reached a global consensus was in 2. Number 1 is basically on the ethical framework on how to use AI or generative AI and how to apply in healthcare. And another one is just basically a common glossary, right? We publish a common glossary because sometimes doctors and non-doctors or AI tech people, like when they speak, they're like, it seems like chicken speaking with egg, chicken speaking with ducks, not with eggs. Can eggs speak? No. Okay, so chicken speak. So the problem is that sometimes we don't have common glossary. And I have the advantage of being both in the medical world and both in the technology world that we managed to find, like a common point. The UN Global Initiative for AI in Health is also a United Nations program that tries to drive international cooperation on ethical and equitable use of AI. And over in the UK, my work with Chatham House is trying to see how we can deploy AI and use artificial intelligence to advance the idea of universal health coverage. The fear is that if you're going to use AI, it will give like some unfair advantage to, to a select group of people, and it will left people who doesn't have access to it be left behind. And how do you, how do you going to try to allay that? Having said that, the generative AI economic impact in healthcare is big, is huge, right? And how does it impact the economy in healthcare? Like you can read it over. You can see the market growth over in 10 years' time. There will be an increase of CAGR by 32.6. But a lot of this value will not be driven by more product. It will not be driven by, I don't think like the AI will produce a new Panadol and then we can sell the Panadol at a more expensive price. No, it wouldn't be like that. A lot of this value will be driven by the demand of precision medicine. So it's not about using more treatment, but it's about using less treatment precisely, right? So it's not going, we no longer we will have, like a whack-a-mole way of treating patient, or like, we are not going to do chemotherapy regime, like the old way any longer. With the promise of precision medicine, you can customize that per patient. So when you do that, it's good for the patient, it's also cheaper for them, because you don't have to take out so much money for try and error. It will also have, in terms of operational costs, and it will drive productivity and cost saving in some of the examples that I'm going to show later on. So insofar, there are 3 key applications of AI in healthcare. The one that we see a little bit promising that I want to share with you today, first thing being how it's being used in drug discovery and development, right? So some companies have used it like, oh, wow, like they find a new active substance that is very promising that can be used for the next design of drug. It has been used for personalized healthcare, where you can customize treatment plan and disease management based on individual patient data. And you will see this, the point number 2, so promising in delivering management for chronic care. Because we're not talking about COVID here, right? Because COVID is not simple, but it's also not that complex. You will find complex management of chronic care. You will find it more difficult to care for elderly people who have 5 comorbidities at once, whose caretaker is not they themselves, but by 3 different people, who have the risk of missing up on prescription, missing up on treatment plan because it got so complex, right? And it can also be used in medical imaging and diagnostic. You will also be able to see how generative AI promise cost saving and promise efficiency in healthcare operation. Not necessarily like over this side, it's about the technical part of medicine. It's about drug, right? It's about drugs, it's about treatment regime, it's about medical imaging. But over this side, more importantly, if you are managing a network of healthcare organization, right? You can use it to make your administrative process more efficiently, right? You can automate tasks like documentation. It sounds boring, but it will save so many man hours. It will free up your hand and will allow you to do the things that your healthcare worker do best, which is to care for your patient. You can also use it for remote patient monitoring, where you'll be able to have real-time data collection and analysis for faster diagnosis and treatment. There are some real-life use cases now that have been endorsed by regulators worldwide. So over in Mayo Clinic, they use generative AI to personalize rheumatoid arthritis treatment using genetic data. We do speak about, I think, the promise of genetic science in medicine earlier today. And like I said, a new field, the information can be overwhelming. And so over in Mayo Clinic, they have used generative AI to personalize rheumatoid arthritis treatment using genetic data. Microsoft and Epic system, they apply it to electronic health record to streamline patient communication or documentation. And like the one I mentioned, Cuman Asia's and Nora, they use their symptom checker and triage tool built using Gen AI by applying Malaysia clinical guidelines. So they don't give weird recommendation when it comes to dengue. Do you know that dengue are treated differently in different countries? And do you know it's correct to do that? So it's correct to do that. It's not like, it's not incorrect. Memang betul. Kalau you pergi Brazil, and you kena dengue kat Brazil, they will treat you differently. And kalau you dekat Malaysia, you kena dengue kat Malaysia, you will be treated differently. And that's the right approach in terms of providing treatment. Because we probably don't know, but we don't know that, but because there are so many nuances, so there are so many moving parts in treating dengue, for example. And the problem with global generative AI tools, they couldn't and wouldn't be able to give a local recommendation, right? You ask them about dengue, and they don't know which treatment plan they're supposed to refer to when being asked this question. So, like I mentioned just now, like WHO, they come up with this guideline for ethical AI in health, and these are basically some potential challenge when you are going to use Gen AI in healthcare. Number one being data privacy and security. I will not, talk much about it, but I think it comes as a bread and butter basic. Like, in order for you to train your AI model, you need to safeguard sensitive patient information. I would also like to emphasize that what you need to safeguard is the sensitive, recognizable, or patient identifiable information, right? So what you want to protect is you want to protect their name, you want to protect their phone number, their location, any of the variables that might make the patient being identifiable. Otherwise, trend of BP or trend of blood sugar, that's fine. That's fine. You can't really claim, like, I probably have the same trend of blood sugar, with the camera guy, and that's fine. It's not personalizable to me. Those are generics. Regulatory compliance. So if you have to ensure generative AI system adhere to healthcare regulation, and the last one is model bias and accuracy. How you can minimize the risk of AI to give out or to generate an inaccurate or inappropriate response, especially for localized context, just like the example that I give in dengue. And when we come up with this tool, there are some real world cases, right? I wasn't just giving you a vague concept, like this might happen or this might happen or this might happen. It actually happened. So there must be a more systematic approach, how you're going to adopt AI tool in your daily operation when you are delivering healthcare service. So these are quite 4 interesting real-world cases that I found over, and I'd like to share with you. First being inaccuracies and AI hallucinations. So for those of you who doesn't know hallucinations, basically AI can hallucinate lah. Atau dalam bahasa kita, AI ni dia boleh je kencing korang. Dan kalau dia kencing hancing, because you might believe them. They were so convincing in the way they use words that you probably going to think like, bunyi macam betul lah kot. Right? But it's not, right? So what you need to do is you need to have that safeguard. So over in ChatGPT-4, when they run a trial in Best Israel Deaconess Medical Center, they found about 40% of complex cases during a trial conducted. It is found that basically the Gen AI, just give them bullshit answer lah, but sounds believable, right? There's also bias and lack of localized response, like I mentioned about how to handle dengue in Malaysia. There's data privacy concern over in EU and US. And when it comes to drug discovery, there was this issue about interpretability and trust. So a lot of how AI give out their output, we have this what we call the black box problem, right? So when it comes to the black box problem, like you recommend to human, right? So you recommend to human, ta-da, this is your new drug, but it doesn't really explain how they come up with that new formulation. And this makes it hard for human like us to basically accept their recommendation. In my personal opinion, right, working with all the agencies and seeing the market landscape, I think the future outlook of generative AI, the most promising and the one that regulators are probably more readily to accept would be in 2 cases, on how Gen AI being used in personalized medicine and whether we can use it as a co-pilot. So there's only some key points that I'd like you to take out from today's. Number 1, when we talk about Gen AI, it's not a clear yes and no. It will transform a lot of stuff like drug discovery, patient care, and healthcare operation. It will help localize AI solution, but you need to be careful in terms of how you manage privacy, regulation, and model accuracy. So my final thought is that while AI holds great potential, you must be able to also weigh the risk. And when you are going to adopt Gen AI into your daily operation, it's best to talk to your local AI experts, lah, right? So you reach out to your local AI experts so that you'll be able to adopt your AI tools and solution safely. Thank you.